Thank you. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Jungman, you talk about the sophisticated and deceptive techniques that the Iranian regime is utilizing to evade oil sanctions, including through foreign front companies. Iran also remains heavily dependent on China to sustain its illicit oil trade, which is like 90% of Iran's oil exports go to China, primarily independent teapot refineries. So you note that Chinese purchase of Iranian oil increased by over 20% last year, despite the U.S. sanctions. So in your perspective, how successful has the U.S. been in identifying these teapot refineries and front companies?
Thank you for your question. I think it's important to remember that until end of 2024, we saw an administration that was essentially doing lax sanctions enforcement. As a result of that, Iran was able to build up its revenues and in turn despite these sanctions, is easily able to replace the vessels that are designated. Mm-hmm. And until there's a comprehensive designation across the entire Ghost fleet, these vessels will continue to export Iranian oil to China. When looking at the refineries themselves, I think that it was a great first step from this administration to designate the refineries we saw sanctioned, I guess, 2 weeks ago. But unfortunately, designation on one refinery has little to no impact. There has to be a comprehensive, holistic approach on all of the refineries that are taking on Iranian oil.
Can you talk about the realistic, short-term action that the U.S. can take to close that loophole? What about the long-term actions, short-term and long-term actions that we can take to close that loophole?
Sure. I think that there needs to be in addition with sanctions, there has to be negotiation or a diplomatic approach. And I think if there's any president that will be able to figure out what to hold over China's head, it'll be this president.
Thank you. Mr. Roll, one of the recommendations you provide in your testimony to counter the Iranian regime's malign activities is to continue investing in the regional military, economic, and commercial partnerships, because in your testimony, in quote, regional economic and social success is as essential to our security interests as their military strength, end quote. So what role do joint security exercises or intelligence sharing activities with our allies play in disrupting Iran's illicit activities?
Thank you, Congresswoman. The relationships we have with our Gulf partners and other regional partners played a profound role in the defense of Israel during Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel. We saw years of CENTCOM's investment in those relationships come to fruition in the smooth air defense of the entire region, and thousands of lives, hundreds of thousands of lives were saved as a result of that. But this is a broader target set because the Iranians are moving, as I say, in the Red Sea Basin. They're moving in the Persian Gulf area. They're moving in throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and these relationships require a tremendous investment by the CENTCOM team as well as our Department of Defense as a whole.
Thank you. Ms. Jungman, let me come back to you. You talk about the IRGC's efforts to diversify its revenue streams, including through cryptocurrency, and how it offers Iran a way to bypass financial oversight and quietly move funds across the borders. So in your perspective, how extensively is the IRGC using cryptocurrency to evade sanctions?
We saw around, I think it was $8 billion of transactions from Iran using cryptocurrency. And I think that this is an area they're obviously tapping into as sanctions, are coming out. So they're moving their money there because it's harder to track, and I think that it's an area that sanctions could be enforced stronger.
So could you talk about some of the policy changes that you think is necessary to improve that effectiveness of sanctions? And also, what risk do Iran's cryptocurrency and front company activities pose to global financial integrity?
I will. This is not my area of expertise, but I'm happy to follow up with a written response there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I ask that because, I want to see if these tactics could set a precedent for other rogue actors or states. And I think we've been pretty clear on the reason why we need a digital assets framework to coordinate with our allies to address those crypto crime. So thank you so much for your testimony, and I yield back. Let's see, who is next? Representative Stanton, I recognize you for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Iran has built a network of proxies across the Middle East, sowing chaos and instability